The fairies have always been known for their love of music. It is said that wherever you are in Scotland, if you place an ear to the ground and listen very carefully, you will hear the enthralling sounds of the Daoine. The music from the Otherworld would always become louder and more alluring the closer you got to one of the fairy mounds, or homes of the Sidhe. The magnificent talent of some of Scotland's greatest musicians were thought to be related in some form to the powers of the fair folk. Perhaps they were granted the gift to create beautiful and enchanting sounds after a chance encounter with the masters of the craft. This is one such tale, the Faerie Orchestra. Many years ago, on the Isle of Lewis, there lived two friends. One of them was a young man who was said to have some skill at playing the fiddle. On one night, the friends were invited to a neighbouring village for a Cèilidh, so at once the young man grabbed his fiddle and a barrel of ale. Then he and his friend headed over the hills to the neighbouring village. That night the Cèilidh was in full swing. There were songs and dances, poems and tales. A great celebration was had. Then come the end of the evening, as the barrels were drained dry, it was time to return home. The two friends, after saying their farewells, began their return trek over the hills. The night was dark and black, but the men knew these roads like the back of their hand, or at least they thought they did. Halfway home, the pair beheld a strange hill blocking their path that both swear they had never seen before. While staring in some confusion, the pair stood witness as a great tear appeared on the side of the hill, and from it, a dazzling green light radiated from within. The pair, now awe-stricken by the otherworldly sight before them, stood in astonishment. It was then they noticed an oddly gentle song surrounding them. Instantly, they knew this had to be the music of the Sidhe, for neither had heard such enchanting sounds before. So overcome by the melody, the man with the fiddle was drawn into the green light, and as he stepped foot inside the hill, the tear slammed shut behind him, forsaking his companion. The fiddler now beheld an incredible sight. A great expanse of mysterious woodland surrounded him, and in the centre, partaking in a Cèilidh of their own, were the beguiling figures of the fair folk. On the near side of a great fire, there stood a collection of fey beings, playing a wide selection of instruments. Some, like the pipes and harp, were known to the man, but many were odd contraptions that let loose sounds entirely unfamiliar to those of our world. Quickly the man removed his fiddle from its case and joined in with the music of the Faerie Orchestra. Once the man displayed his talents for the fiddle, the odd beings seemed happy to admit the fiddler into their company, and for many hours the man became enthralled in the music of the Otherworld. Eventually, the dancing and singing would subside, and the orchestra played their final number. The Cèilidh was over. As the final notes echoed throughout the woodland, one of the Sidhe held a beautifully crafted fiddle towards the man, and as he reached out to touch the ornate instrument, the man found himself back on the dark road in the hills. Bewildered and a little shocked, the man took in his surroundings and wondered if his time with the Faerie Orchestra had all been a wild dream. But as he checked his fiddle case, he found the master-crafted fiddle of the Sidhe. Then he knew a great gift had been bestowed upon him. As the first light of a new day appeared, the man headed home. Before reaching his own house, he called in at his friend's to check that he had made it home safely. The fiddler rapped harshly on the door, and as it was pulled open, his friend looked upon him with wonderment, then threw his arms about him. "Where have you been for all this time?" the surprised man said to the fiddler. The man with the fiddle recounted the events of the past few hours and told of the Sidhe and their beautiful music. It was only then he was told that the night of the Cèilidh was well over a year ago, and the fiddler had been missing for quite some time. So long, in fact, that his friend had given up all hope of his return. It did not take long for the odd tale of the fiddler and the Faerie Orchestra to travel all around the local villages, and it was fair to say that many disbelieved the wild story. Some even thought that the tale was a scam invented by the fiddler to increase his bookings. But there came a time when there was to be another great Cèilidh, and all the locals from the area were set to attend. That night, in front of many a naysayer, the young man uncased his prized possession, the fairy fiddle, and played with such skill and proficiency that none who heard the performance would ever again doubt his time with the Faerie Orchestra. Similar tales to this one can be found all over Scotland, and the visit to the Otherworld is commonly accompanied by missing time. In a previous video, I told a similar story, that of the Glendevin Piper, who was held in the Otherworld for over 100 years. He too would learn a great deal of musical knowledge from the Fae. Music has and will always hold a sacred part in the heart and mind of all those who come from Scotland, and I can guarantee this is not the last time I mention its significance in relation to the Otherworld. Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to my patrons who help support the channel and allow me to bring you these tales. Slán Siva.